Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us here on a Gulfstream today. I'm Gabby Gaudette, joined by Andy Serling to take a look at this Wednesday program, but a whole lot of events going into this weekend. Of course, Saturday, Sunshine Millions Day, and the 45th Annual Eclipse Awards ceremony as well. A lot going on here at Gulfstream leading up to a big day as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a whole lot goes on around here, pretty much the whole meet, but a big weekend with the Eclipse Awards and Sunshine Millions. And we've talked about it before, but we're expecting American Pharoah to have a pretty big day.
Yeah, let's hope so at least.
Pretty amazing if he didn't win the Horse of the Year. What do you think would happen in the room if for some reason?
I can't even imagine, but I would love to be there to see it. We'll take a look at this 10-race program as well. We'll start out by looking at our featured wagers today and our carryovers. And in the first race, it does start the rolling Super High 5. No carryover in today's first race, and it does also start the early 50-cent Pick 5 as we get into the fifth race on the card. Kicks off the 20-cent Rainbow Pick 6, that carryover just over $38,000. And race 6 does start the late 50-cent Pick 5. And taking a look at the sequence today, it's an interesting card, and even today, tomorrow, and Friday, interesting races where you kind of have to spread in different races, but some actually useful singles as well.
Well, yeah, there are some places to go. The Pick 5, my early Pick 5, affected by scratches. I guess we'll put that ticket up to start the whole thing right now. I'm going to use 4 horses to start it out, but I'm going to single in the second leg. I found the first race very difficult. Though I'm interested in betting on the 3, my selection. I'm going to take a shot and single my man Nick Zito with Choir Director, a horse I'm a fan of in the second leg. We'll go through the other sequences, see how things work out. This would be an anchor ticket for me, and you try to play around with it, and you play multiple tickets and try to get there. This first race, Gabby, is one where I think ultimately a couple of things. I don't want any part of Samu, the 7, a horse that I thought you made a good point last time, that her best chance was cutting back to 6 furlongs. We still weren't a big fan. Now, in fairness, though, she was wired on a speed track in that race, and that's one of the reasons I like my horse, but I just feel like she's lost her good form.
I agree with you, and she was also claimed off of kind of a sharp barn, Marcus Vitale, that seems to do well with those types of horses, so we don't know if she's going to make a lateral move off of that last race, where in my opinion she's going to have to take a step forward, and I don't know if she can do that. I do think she's got enough talent to at least finish in the mix, so I did respect her in terms of the trifecta, but I agree with you that I think she could be one to beat. You try to beat her with the 3 Sherry's win in here. I go to the 1 Starship Galaxy. The blinkers do go on, and this is kind of, I can't make a strong case for this horse, but she does stretch back out to the 7 furlong. She gets the blinkers on. She draws the rail. The last time she actually went this particular distance, she had a lot of trouble in that race. You go back to the start before, and she finished a decent second. Again, grasping at straws, but I don't trust her favorite in here.
Yeah, I didn't want to take horses that were going to be short prices. And look, I've got this horse in my ticket. I'm trying to beat Semu, and I'm using the other horses that can reasonably win in the race, whether it works out that way or not. I wish Starship Galaxy hadn't been on the rail last time, because she was on the rail, she's on the best part of the track, and it really makes me like her even less. I'll use her. My feeling with the 3 Sherry's win, it's not that I love her. She's going to be a big price. She's obviously almost 20 to 1 now. I don't think you're going to get below 10 to 1 even on her by post time. So if I'm going to take a shot in a race where I just don't like anybody and they all kind of look the same, I mean, your eyes start getting blurry at a certain point looking at these races. I'm going to take a horse that's going to be a price, and this horse was completely against the track last time. Not only was she trying to close, but she was trying to do it while very, very wide. Did she run well? No, but she didn't run so badly that I don't think she has a little bit of a chance at 20 to 1. That's good enough for me.
When taking a look at the 4 Line Eye, she did face 16,000 non-winners, a 2 Lifetime Company, and a 7-horse field. But again, we've spoken about this time and time again. People bet these horses on their turf form, and sometimes they don't always transition it to the main track. She's right now early money, but 6 to 5. That's tough.
Yeah, she's going to really sucker people in this race because it's such a confusing race. She's also got 1 win and 21 starts in 8 seconds, so even on her preferred surface, she doesn't get it done.
Exactly. We'll move on to the second race, a nice maiden special weight, going the 1-turn mile on the main track, and this is your single.
I could sing if you want.
I'm trying to say singer because choir director, so it's all making sense now, right?
That's what it is, right? Yeah.
With great ideas
yeah,
on this
well,
morning
those
show.
2 days off have been very energizing for you. Choir director, who you don't like at all, which makes me feel really sad. For you, not for me. Choir director is a bit of an enigma because this horse that ran extraordinarily well in his debut. I don't know what happened to the horse who won that race, but that horse was very well meant. And choir director really ran well after breaking slowly, making a big run in the middle of the race, and finishing second. We had high hopes, got into a tough race and got in some trouble in his first start at Saratoga, then got involved in this wacky pace scenario in that Smiling John race in his third career start. Then he really didn't run very well, but he was kind of coming back in 10 days, and they were jamming a lot of races in. His effort at Keeneland behind Cowboy Rhythm, who was a very hard horse to beat that day, was a very good effort. Last time out, he got embroiled in a big pace duel in a race that completely collapsed. He is the controlling speed in this race. Whether or not he's going to win and get the mile, I don't know. But if he runs his good race, he's too good for these. And the other thing was, horses like Catanova and Annihilator, who can clearly win, they're horses that have had their chances, and I feel like somebody usually seems to pop up and beat them.
I agree with that, and I actually had kind of a tough time with this. So the fact that you really like the two choir director does make me a little bit scared, because the reason why I landed on Catanova, quite frankly, is that I thought he was coming, and he's had his fair share of times to win or lose, obviously, but last time out, I thought he came out of a very good race and a stronger race than kind of what the rest of the field, with the exception of choir director, has been coming out of. Deep Sea was very impressive the other day here. We saw Blazing Prospector go on to get a 90 Beyer speed figure outside of that race. So in terms of class and the fields that they're exiting, I had to give the preference to Catanova.
No, I completely agree with that, and I have no problem with that at all. I think he's a dangerous horse. He's just lost too many races. It's not that I love choir director. I love him in this race in the sense that I don't like anybody else. So this is a horse I have to pick. It's not a horse I'm running the window and making a huge bet on.
We should talk about the 3-word, because he's 5-2 on the morning line, and he obviously has been running high Beyer speed figures, a 93 in his debut, and followed up by consecutive low to mid 70 Beyer speed figures. However, he has been the beaten favorite in the past 2 starts, and I can't respect him in here primarily because he was beaten last time out at Parks behind a horse who hasn't been able to win restricted Pennsylvania A other than races. So I don't think those were strong races at all.
Yeah, I had nastier things to say about that race when I looked it up. I don't like this horse at all based on his PPs, and that 93 Beyer in the first race sticks out like a sore thumb.
All right, moving on to another maiden race, maiden $50,000 event, 1-turn mile on the main track. Scratch the 2, Little Chuck in here. And you and I both agree on the 4, Gone Local, coming out of a pretty good race. I like the fact that this horse actually gets added distance, and we'll actually go back and take a look.
His debut.
At his debut performance at Gulfstream Park West, going the 6 furlongs.
Yeah, I think this is the race that both you and I like this horse out of, because Gone Local was involved in a pace duel that involved 4 or 5 horses. And this horse really blew it open top of the stretch. And I respect the move by the rider. It ended up blowing up a little bit in his face, but he tried to blow the race open. It didn't work. But when you get horses that are involved in contentious paces, and they're the ones that blow the race open, and they still run respectively, I think that's a good sign. He's got to get the mile today. He was facing better horses last time, but at the end of the day, I just wanted him more than anybody else, Gabby.
Me too. I thought it was a strong race that he comes out of. We saw Mo Power and Unk, 2 first-time starters, I believe, by Uncle Mo. And you got to look for those horses to run back because they were flying late. So I think that was kind of a key race, and I do think that this is a big class relief.
It is a big class relief. I don't know how strong that field was. I think that was a firster for Todd and a firster for Brendan Walsh that ran second and third in there. Give to UK Cats. It seems like the worst to beat. You're kind of playing against this horse. I don't have a big play against him. I think Nick Gonzalez, who claimed this horse from Mike Maker, does a good job. It just felt like a horse that was sort of ready to win first time out for Joe Sharp and the Ramseys. Didn't get it done. It didn't run badly, but these horses often, not for Nick Gonzalez, but even for Joe Sharp, would regress in their second starts.
I agree with you, and I don't really know how strong of a race that was. We saw Big Paul. He was obviously a multiple length winner, and he was a class of the race. He was a maiden special weight dropper for Todd. But overall, whatever was behind him, I didn't think was strong. And this horse has his quirks as well. He was getting into trouble on the backside.
Well, you know, you rarely see a horse outside of other horses try to duck in the gap. And he did it. You see that comment in the line. He did it the jockey, I thought that Corey Leonard did an excellent job of really getting a hold of him. It didn't affect him that badly, but that's rare to see a horse that when they duck in the gap, they're usually on the inside.
Yeah, absolutely. And he did. He did a great job recovering from there. And then he was caught in a tricky position. Kind of, he had to be aggressive to get up in the gap so that to get this horse into contention so he would stop kind of being green. So I wasn't crazy about him, so I had to go against him. The one Giant Inca, this is a horse that can win. Again, we're grasping at straws. The 4 Gone Local, this is a horse that we both like best.
We like best, but it's a lot of horses can win this race. I wouldn't get into an argument with anybody that want to tell me they really liked a horse in here.
We'll move on to the 4th race, the 25,000 conditional claimer, going out to the turf course here at a mile, and we have the 2 break-even analysis at 7-2 in the morning line, and we'll take a look at this horse's last replay on the 10th of December, going the 1-turn mile here off a bit of a freshening. And he closed from off the pace and got the victory.
Yeah, I don't like this horse, and I'm guessing you are in a similar boat as me, and wanted to show the race because this was a race that completely fell apart, and it just fell in his lap, and he gets into a very different dynamic in today's race. I think he'll get some pace in here, but I just don't see the race falling the same way for him.
It did, and you can see even the horse to his inside, the number 14 horse, I believe it is, closing from off the pace. You see kind of the cavalry charge, and even visually you can see that the pace fell apart in the race.
Yeah, now Okie Meister in some ways is a major player in this race because he's the speed along with Foxhall Drive. If Foxhall Drive is allowed to sort of go slowly on the front end, he's a dangerous horse in here. If he doesn't, I don't think he can win this race. Okie Meister is faster than him, is supposed to go. Foxhall Drive can stalk, but I don't think he'll be as tough if forced to stalk.
Yeah, if you have to press from the outside, that could be a tricky position, but I did handicap him and use him on the premise that I do think that he will be forwardly placed. And Louis Sai has been riding here very well lately. The 5 Protection is a horse that you and I both opt to go with. First off, the claim for Mike Maker, and I believe we have a stat on the barn as well.
We do, actually. We've got him. You've got first off the claim in turf routes with claimers, where he's got these strong numbers. He's just got great numbers in general off the claim, and you can see it.
Positive ROI, $4.16, 38% and 59% in the money. And this seems like a horse that is definitely a viable option to try to beat the favorite in here, or even the number 6 horse for Jenna Antonucci. Again, I just think that this distance might be a little bit too short as it was last time at Aqueduct.
Yeah, she was compromised, or he was compromised last time by racing in a race where no Texan was allowed to walk on the front end. And all things considered, comes the dream. Those horses are a relatively tough field. I've always liked Protection as a horse and thought at times he's shown some real ability. And I thought it's a shrewd claim by Mike Maker, and the kind of horse that if he can get him to run as good races, he can beat these horses.
Okay, with that said, that's races 1 through 4. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get into the 20-cent Rainbow Pick 6 carryover, over $38,000 right after this. Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Taking a look at the Pick 6 sequence here. We do have a carryover just over $38,000, and it does start in today's 5th race on this 10-race program. We'll take a look at my ticket. I did construct one, and I do have a single later today, and that does take place in race 9. Actually singling on Saffron Hall there later today. But taking a look at the first leg, it's off the turf on the main track, just using 3 horses. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if I got kicked out of the first leg and some kind of crazy horse winds up winning, as you kind of have to go back to the drawing board, but hopefully we can get one of them home. 6 and 7 in race 3, using several in races 7 and 8, and using 4 in today's finale as well.
Not an easy sequence.
Not an easy sequence. I had a tough time finding a single, but you have to do it sometimes, especially if you need to spread out in a couple different legs. So we'll talk about the 5th race, originally carded for the turf at 7.5 furlongs. We'll run on the main track at 7 furlongs, and a horse that definitely figured is now Scratch, the one Shameless Lass. So this race gets a little bit murky.
It's funny, we were talking beforehand. It's a race where most of the contestants have never run on the turf, yet it was a harder race to handicap on dirt than turf, because like at least on turf, there was no pedigree, so you could take a shot and just use the horses that had run on the turf and run okay. On the dirt, man, they all looked the same to me. This race was just, my head was spinning looking at it.
I like the one Shameless Lass in here. I thought that she could definitely repeat, but we'll have to save that for another day. The 3 Panetta is a horse that I land on, primarily because she was a long-time maiden, and a lot of the times I don't like that. But they finally found a reasonable class relief for her last time out. They dropped her down to the maiden 12,500 level. She won going the mile. Now she cuts back to 7 furlongs, and I just like that kind of angle.
Yeah, I've got her third. Listen, I'm not going to argue against any horse in here. I just took the two horses at the end of the day that have run against the best horses in their recent dirt efforts, and that was the 7, Raised to be a Warrior, and the 9, Secret War. There's nothing clever about it. Secret War is a horse that probably ran a little better on wet tracks, frankly, than dry tracks. But looking through these horses, I'm hoping class relief helps these horses. It's the best I could do.
Okay, we'll move on to more interesting races. The race 6.
It's not uninteresting. It's just impossible.
It is impossible. There's not a lot to say about it is the thing. Race 6, going 6 furlongs on the main track. This $25,000 open claimer. This does kick off the 50-cent late pick 5, and I believe you have a ticket for the sequence.
I do have a ticket for the sequence. We'll see how it works out, my ticket. I'm going to go thin through the first 3. I'm going to go 6-7 with 4-14, 5-8. 189. I'm going to use a bunch of horses in the last race. These are not easy races, and I could have made my ticket $240. And I've just, it's hard. You play these to hit them with multiple tickets, and you try to zero in on horses. I didn't really have a single. I thought this race was very, very hard. One of the problems I had in here, Gabby, was what to do with Scam. John Service will show you a trainer stat, has really bad numbers overall, coming off of layoffs of over 6 months, and that was a reason I left out Scam, a horse the Phippses gave up on. They sold, of course, to these connections. I just don't trust this horse.
I don't trust him either, but he is capable of winning this race off of his back form, and he has proven that off several months layoffs that he can fire fresh. However, this is kind of a hefty layoff. He's coming back from April. In the past, he ran a good race off of November to January layoffs, so just a few months there. His race at Laurel was very impressive. He kind of dueled back gamely off of the 2 months off. If he's capable of performing that, again, you could go back to his last 2 races at Parks and say, well, maybe he didn't like a little bit of moisture in the track. Now he's getting to a fast track, and he very well could win this. But I think he's also a horse to try to beat.
Yeah, that's the way I feel. I completely agree with you.
And we both try to opt for the 6, Gumby Dancer. First off the claim for George Navarro. Again, this is a trainer, Connections, who are just batting at 32% with these types of claims on the dirt. This is his specialty.
No, I was hoping the Navarro claim would get Gumby Dancer back to his good form. And there's no doubt his good form has eluded him in his last few starts. Last time out, he did chase wide, which I think compromised his best chances. And he sort of finished with that group, 2 of which finished ahead of him, but are coming back in this race. And I wanted him off the claim. I thought Loudcat's dangerous, as good as Mike Maker is, though, off the claim on turf. His numbers off the claim on dirt are not very good.
They're not very good at all, and the majority of those, especially coming off 61 to 180-day layoffs as well, the majority of winners that have happened have been protected off the layoff as well. And this horse is showing the $25,000 claiming tag, and I don't know.
Well, you need to be off 6 months to protect, right? Is that I assume that's the rule. So
and
couldn't
run
have protected.
back at the same
but
level.
Running back for a quarter, I agree. That's a negative on a horse who can win. I wanted Gumby Dancer, so did you.
All right, moving on to the 7th race, a 50,000 non-winners, a 2 lifetime event, a mile onto the turf course as well. And this is a tricky race because obviously the horse that figures is the 14 Rock Eagle. He breaks from the outside going the mile as he did last time out, or going the mile in a 16th, so even tougher here today. And again, I kind of landed on a funny horse, as did you. The 3 Big Yum is a horse that I'll actually opt for, primarily because I think he's tactical, he draws a good post, and this race very well could fall into his lap.
I don't disagree. I think he'll be sitting off the 1, Quimet, who looks like the speed on the inside, and I think that he's a dangerous player. I agree. I didn't put him in my pick 5. If I was betting a lot more money, I would put him in. He would be at least a C, if not a B for me, and a spread-out type of play where you're playing multiple tickets. And I agree. I think he has a chance to win. I don't love the horses he was running against in New York, but I think he fits well in here, and a firmer turf might work in his favor, though we've had some give with the rain. With Rocky, you'll get the outside post, not John Velasquez's strong suit, getting horses to save ground and outside posts with the turn coming up. And Rock Eagle is a horse I have a mad love affair for, but he's mired out there. Inspire Courage had been entering the turf off the claim about a week or so ago. You and I both liked him, and he scratched. He's back in here. Clearly, Mike Maker wants to run this horse in the turf. For what it's worth, we'll show you a trainer stat. He's 5 for 17, first-time turf off the claim over the last 5 years, an ROI of over $4. He must know something I don't, because the horse doesn't have a lot of obvious turf pedigree, to say the least. But you know what? I'm going to trust in Mike Maker in this race, because honestly, I don't like anyone in here other than the 14.
I liked him when he was entered previously, because I thought it was kind of an easier race. This race came up a little bit tougher, but with the post position of the favorite here, drawn to the way outside, he very well could win this. Rock Eagle again. I thought Vicente Gurriel actually rode this horse very well last time out. He drew from the way outside post. He saved ground. He saved ground the entire way. He just seemed like he just wasn't good enough to win other than.
Well, Tapitation and Argot are just better horses than him, and better than these. This is a realistic drop by Barkley, though Barkley's numbers, first time for a tag and first time for a tag in the turf, are not that strong.
We'll move on to the 8th race on the card, a first level allowance going 7 furlongs onto the main track. And this is, I think, a cool race, and it can go one of two ways. Either Juan and Bina and Ami's Flatter are going to revert to their back form, or it has blow-up potential written all over it.
Yeah, I mean, Amy's Flatter, and we'll show Amy's Flatter actually finishing second in the Mucho Macho Man last year. And Amy's Flatter, after this Mucho Macho Man race, I don't think he ran badly at all. He ran some very tough spots, distant third in the Florida Derby, second in the Tampa Bay Derby. This is a talented horse. Josie Carroll, we're going to show you a trainer stat after we show you this race that shows that her horses often need a race off a layoff. That's what concerns me with Amy's Flatter. I don't think there's any chance there's a better horse in this race than Amy's Flatter. I just think there's a chance he doesn't run his best race today.
And he very well could. At 7 furlongs, this is a horse who they're obviously using this as a platform to stretch him out in longer distances in the future. And obviously he was on the Derby campaign with the Tampa Bay. We can see the stat here right now. Only 17% in a negative ROI with 180 plus day layoffs over the past 5 years. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not against him, and he's on my ticket. I'm very curious what you like about the 9 No More Music.
I'll get to that in 1 second, but still talking about Amy's Flatter for a second. They obviously they thought highly of this horse, and then they gave him time off. I was reading an article in DRF actually for a bruised cannon bone. They brought him back. They were kind of going towards either the Derby or trying him for the Queen's Plate, and we see how it kind of panned out. And again, he's going to have to prove himself off the layup, but the works are good. The 9 No More Music, again, I'm purely banking on hopes that the 5 and the 8 don't show up here today. And Paco Lopez.
And the 6, 7, 2, 3.
And Paco Lopez can be aggressive from the outside. This horse is working good locally at Gulfstream. The barn does well with these kind of layoffs on the dirt over the past 5 years. Positive ROI as well. And he is an honest horse. Now, it is against much lesser company, and it's going to be almost it'll be very hard for him to win. But he has the speed. He's coming into the race, obviously, well with good works, and I'm just hoping that maybe Paco can steal this. It wouldn't be the first time.
It is a race where you feel like you want to try to find speed, because the speeds are Moontige and Sun Magic, the 2 and 3. I don't love the race that Moontige is coming out of. Maybe he'll wire this field. I'm not his biggest fan. I guess he's far from impossible in here. With Juan and Bina, listen, I don't trust this horse, and he's kind of gone the wrong way, but he was in a pretty tough spot to be coming off a layoff last time. They're going back to the drawing board. He's got Javier. Javier knows that this race doesn't have a lot of speed. Juan and Bina is a horse that at one time had the speed to be closer, and I think Javier is going to get him into a good position. And if he runs his race, he can win. But listen, I don't have any problem with you playing against him, because he is a little bit tough horse to trust, and it's not always going to be a big price.
Even though it was a tough race, he didn't show up at all.
No, I know.
That was my concern. Now the blinkers come off. And it kind of slower works outside of that race as well. He went in 106 at Gulfstream Park West, followed up by a 103 workout as well in early January. So I don't know. Like I said, I thought this race could go of one or two ways. Either the class horses in the race will draw from the rest of the field, or it could have blow-up potential.
No, I agree. I think this is the kind of race we could spend a lot of time talking about it, because I think there's a lot of what you're saying is true. I went to the 2 favorites in here, and I may really regret it. I couldn't make cases for the other horses other than the 4 Battle Midway, who's a long shot. I think can get a piece.
Okay, moving on to the first half of the late daylight double, race in 9, and we go out to the turf course at 1 1/16. Have a couple of scratches, including a key scratch in the 3 Golden Rifle in here, and that's why I default to the 9. Well, I actually had the 9 on top as well, but at least default for him to be a single in the pick 6. The 9 Saffron Hall. I land on. I know you like Scrump Delicious in here. We'll go back.
Let's show their race and talk about it.
Yeah, we'll go back and take a look at it.
Yeah, I think in talking about it, here's the problem with it. Delicious, or whatever. Who names these
Scrump-
horses these names? Call him
Scrumptious.
Dan or something.
Steve.
Steve, right. I'll tell my Steve joke if you're not careful. The point I was making in this race was that Scrumptious is not going to be compromised by pace. So I knew looking at this race it had the potential to scratch where a horse like Golden Rifle or Lasso came out would help the other horse. And in this case, you also lost Magna Breeze, which helped them. You do have have other horses who have some speed, but the 5 came out. He could have been speed, though you knew he was coming out. He was essentially an MTO. Scrumptious isn't going to be that compromised by it. I am afraid that Saffron Hall is going to be compromised. He was a lot better with the race intact.
He was, but there's still some speed in here. Lasso is very fast. Lucky Kitten's still in here, and we
Not
also
that
have,
fast.
and we have MC Square. So I
know.
even though with the scratch of some of the horses that figured to be close, I like the fact that he gets out of distance, because this is a horse that's screaming for more than the mile, and he does have the class in this race too.
I'm not against him. I have no problem whatsoever with him. I think he makes a lot of sense in this race. I'm just worried that Lasso can win the race. Lasso, a mile and a 16th, he can be a little faint-hearted. I just feel like Scrumptious will be in a better spot, but I'm not against Saffron Hall either.
We also have the 8 Lasso, a horse that you used as well. This horse figures to be a pace presence in here. He was the beaten favorite last time out after going 22 and change, 45 and change for the half. And the connections protect him second off the claim, even despite a subpar performance last time.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, he's in a much better spot than he was in last time out, and he can wire this field. He's a horse who will go as fast as he has to go. One thing you know with these connections, these are connections that understand the value of speed, and they're not going to play that nurse along in the lead. They nurse Lasso along in the lead in a slow pace, let a horse surrounding him, he'll finish last. If they let him roll, he has a chance to win.
Very dangerous indeed. We'll move on to the 10th and final race on the card. A maiden $16,000 event, a mile and a 16th on the turf course. And I'm just, I'm banking on the hopes that the one Spanish Armada can get the job done today on the stretch out and distance. He's 12-1 on the morning line. I honestly, the sharp connections, Eddie Pleasa, Joel Rosario. This horse has been sprinting on the turf as of late. Has obviously rained off the turf and run on the main track last time out. If you go to his back maiden special weight races at Monmouth and Belmont going a route of ground, they're actually not too bad. And I thought it was at least, I wouldn't say it's a significant class drop from those, but I think it might just do the job, especially with the good inside post. You land on the 11, Mr. Song.
Yeah, I hear you. Spanish Armada, it is the right move to stretch him out. He's not a sprinter. These were the wrong races to run him, and I agree. He just had, the problem with him is he had his chance at short prices, and he's got a lot of hang in him. I guess he has a chance. I thought a lot of horses could win this race. As you saw in my pick 5, I've got the 4, and then I've got the 11 through the 14. I think Updraft will be well posted in here. Sudden big drop for Kieran. He's obviously logical. Mr. Song, who I have on top, I know he's got to go a shorter distance. He ran against some okay horses. His first race on the turf, that was a decent effort. Do I love the drop down? No. They're trying to win a race. I'm going to take a chance. I thought of all the horses in the group that I wanted to use, he might be the best price. I put him on top.
We also have the 14 Kings Knight to the outside, who's technically
horse to beat.
He is the horse to beat. He's dropping in company from maiden special weight and from obviously on the turf. His turf races were very good. He has to draw that outside post, and he might run out of time. This is a late, deep closer going a mile and a 16th, and he might run out of time.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of a look of a horse that just doesn't really get it done. It's not. You look at his 2 turf races. He was 9-2 and 3-1. So it's not like he was in fields that he shouldn't have run well in. He ran okay. Listen, Dispersion is okay in here. Honor Earned is okay. I'm going to use all those horses. I didn't use Spanish Armada. I hear you're thinking, though.
So how many horses did you use in the final?
I used 5. I went top heavy in it. Listen, these are not easy sequences. You're talking about playing pick 5s and putting together tickets, and playing one ticket is a tricky thing to do. You're better off finding strong opinions and playing multiple tickets off them and forcing yourself to be smart in 2 spots, really not particularly bright in one of them, and okay in another 2 spots. And if you play multi-tickets, this is the way to go. There's Ticket Maker on DRF. Steve Christ obviously talked about an exotic betting, and it's a great book to read about playing multi-race bets. I think anybody in today's game where multi-race bets are such a huge factor, if you haven't read Exotic Betting by Steve Christ and you're playing these, I think you're doing yourself a disservice.
Okay. I used 4 horses in the final leg again. That's what you have to do, especially in terms of the pick 6. You have to find absolute bomb horses that probably don't make sense that could win, and you try to have a firm opinion on some races and try to key around a particular horse, which is what I'm doing today. Whether or not he'll win,
Yeah, I mean,
we'll
if you
find out.
look at people who know how to hit pick sixes, obviously they're putting a lot of money into them.
Yes.
But what they're doing is they're giving themselves as much room to be wrong and still collect, because hitting pick sixes and pick fives is about surviving races and getting to the race where you have a good opinion by surviving the other races. And depending on what you spend and how you construct your tickets, that's how you're going to hit it. It's ticket construction much more than opinions.
And survival of the fittest, apparently.
Listen, it's not easy, but it's a great exercise, and it's a great way to learn how to play, because it's different to try to find the winner, obviously, than playing supers and such, but ticket construction and supers. And I think of, like, obviously Steve plays it very well. Travis Stone, who was a friend of both of ours, who's got a very good idea. Nick Tamaro. These are guys who know how to put together tickets. And so often I'll talk to Nick at night and I'll say, how'd you do today? And both of us had sort of mediocre opinions. And he'll say, I basically broke even. That triple in the 7th race at Gulfstream, I keyed the 3rd horse. I hit the triple for $1. And, I got $700 and I ended up getting even for the day. And listen, that's what you do at the racetrack. It's an ego battle on picking winners, but in betting, it's constructing tickets properly.
It's constructing tickets properly and having an opinion and sticking to it. Hopefully some of our opinions are correct today. With that said, we're going to take a quick break. Larry Gomez has to get up here and give scratches and changes. Once again, a reminder, the first leg of the Pick 6, Race 5, will be run on the main track. It is off the turf, but good news is we do have a carryover today, over $38,000. We'll be back for the first race and the remaining of the card. But first, Larry Gomez, best of luck on today's program.